The Book of James by Herb Painter, Session 9, Chapter 2, 21 through 26. Justification by works continued. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. And in the same way was not also Rahab the prostitute justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way? For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead. Justified. Greek, dikaiou. Definition: to render, that is, to show or regard as just or innocent. The passage states that Abraham's faith was perfect, totally developed and mature. The tests we are given in this life will probably not be as severe as the tests given to Abraham, Daniel, Joseph, or many others attested in the Bible, but our tests may very well feel like it. But take comfort that whatever difficulty you may be facing right now, no matter how severe, God has a purpose in asking you to endure. Remember, calling out to God in your anguish and pain is not a sin at all. Christ himself cried out to his Father from the cross, pleading for any other way to deal with man's sin debt than hanging on the cross. But just as Christ, we must conclude that we trust God for the outcome and relinquish our approval to his wisdom. There is a direct purpose in God allowing your pain to happen, and that purpose will always be for the purpose of preparing you for not only your part in his plan, but for your eternal reward for obedience. Faith is the confidence that God is at work inside you, enabling you to accomplish extra-human feats through his strength. When God is at work inside you, he works powerfully. No simple Christian cliches are appropriate when God is at work with his plan. He pulled his son out of the grave, and he will deliver you too. Faith is the victory that overcomes the world. Faith under fire. Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. The issue here is whether God's faith, living faith, is present inside the believer in duress. When the believer has the confidence that God is living through him, no impossible situation can stand in the way of God accomplishing his work. Faith is not a parlor trick to be performed at a moment's notice for the amusement of the masses, but a display of delivering power rendered by a powerful God and through a humble servant. God allows trials and testing to enter our lives to shape us into the image of his Son. These trials always have one element in common: they require supernatural deliverance. The test is not the test. The test is whether we see the delivering hand of God or the crushing weight of experiential bad luck. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hope has a different meaning in Scripture than it does in 20th century English vocabulary. Hope here is the essence of faith. Hope is the bright inner assurance that God will deliver us from every situation. It is not a badge or good luck charm to be worn on the outside, but the certain confidence and strength that is worn on the inside. The key word here is confidence. Faith is a very real thing, a thing of substance, measurable on God's scale of rewards. We are so sure of God's purpose in our earthly trials that we willingly step into the unknown, knowing that God is waiting with open arms on the other side. Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Pleasing God has never been a requirement for personal salvation. The very need of salvation indicates that God is displeased with our performance. However, pleasing God as a believer is what the Christian life is all about. Pleasing God can be summed up as humbly believing that God and God alone can and will deliver his children from any situation. God allowed 3 young Jewish boys to be thrown into a large furnace simply because they honored God's command. But they emerged without so much as the smell of smoke on their clothing. God goes with you into your furnace, and he will deliver you whole and reward your obedience. Diligently seeking God is believing that the very core energy of life is found in him, and that he alone has the answer to every problem in question. God rewards those who expect him to deliver them. Hebrews 11:7. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Active faith is what the book of James is all about. I believe that a key element in this verse is that often God expects us to move with fear. The fear of God is the recognition that his authority too awesome to resist. Faith is fear in action, believing in the deliverance that God alone can provide. Fear. Definition: to be circumspect, that is, to be apprehensive, religiously, to reverence. God bestows the crown of righteousness to those who act on the faith they have been given. Notice it does not say that those who aren't scared are rewarded. I bet Noah was petrified, first, because he had never seen water come out of the sky, and second, because he had probably never built so much as a dinghy, let alone an aircraft carrier-sized floating zoo. When Noah started to build the ark, he took a stand with God that undoubtedly cost him all human credibility with everyone but his family, and they probably thought he was out of his mind. I can just imagine what the Homeowners Association thought about building a boat in his front yard. However, by placing his confidence in the word of the Lord, Noah became heir of righteousness. Looking throughout the Old Testament, we see example after example of humans who were told by God to take a stand that bore no resemblance to human common sense. Real faith means there is no plan B. Real faith is hanging so far out on a branch that there is no return to safety, and no safety net. Incidentally, Noah's test lasted more than 100 years. Hebrews 11:8. Faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. Abraham was told by God to leave the only home he had known and move his family tribe to a strange land that he had never known. This was only one of many tests that God gave to Abraham. Many times in the Bible, Abraham had the opportunity to see a desperate situation as an opportunity for God's display of deliverance, or to write each one off as a random twist of fate. Rahab was motivated by faith when she smuggled 2 of Joshua's spies out of Jericho. She was given the confidence that what she did for the God of Abraham would be remembered and rewarded. Please note that in both examples, God severely tested each in his own way. This was no easy thing for either. God brought each to the brink of their human resources and then asked him to go further in his strength. A believer must reckon his life as a stage on which God will display his purpose and power. Confidence in his ability to deliver is what God has always sought from his children. In a word, you can do this. This is the end of Session 9.